So as we were walking further along this ridge in front of me, something just popped out and caught my eye. And that's exactly the reason why I'm standing on this ridiculous ridge again. As we were kind of walking down this path, I saw these beautiful 3 mountain huts, and then this layers and layers and layers of mountains, almost like a painting in the background, right where that setting sun is going to be. Now what? Now what do I do? I'm standing on this path, I'm overwhelmed by this beauty. How do I get the best picture possible? So when I look around, I see this kind of like ridge, this small little hill on the left-hand side. That's exactly where I'm standing now. Now, it might be a little bit difficult when you first start to think about this, to see what would it look like if I was standing here? What would it look like if I used this lens? What would it look like if I got down low and came across this tree and looked back out that way? That's photography right there, is asking yourself that very question. It's a matter of perspective. That's really all it really comes down to. I knew down there that if I came up on this hill, I would have a much different perspective. I would be able to look down on this scene. That's going to give me this winding path through that foreground, leading to these mountain huts and then these mountains all the way in that background. I couldn't quite see it where I was down there, but from up here, it's as clear as day. So this is the beautiful silver lining of being a photographer, is standing in a scene like this, being surrounded by this beauty, and then seeing something that catches your eye, which other people will do, but a photographer will go one step further. A photographer will say, this is what it looks like now, in this spot, from this perspective, with this angle lens. What would it look like if? That's the difference between someone who takes a picture and a photographer. It's a matter of perspective and exploring your curiosity. So now that we're up here, I think this is gonna make for a much better shot. Let me show you what I mean. So as I have this image framed up, I'm gonna start with my wide angle, my 1x view. That doesn't capture what took me, right? You never wanna take an image, you wanna be taken by the scene. That's what happened to me when I look at these mountains, when I looked at these mountain huts. It didn't quite capture my eye here though. Something's missing. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm responsible for everything in that frame. I wanna fill my frame with everything that caught my eye. That's why we're up here, and that's what I want to do. So how can I best do that? I'm going to switch over to my 2x view, and you'll notice right away, everything kind of pops into line perfectly. These mountain huts now are much larger in that frame, and we're also sort of compressing them against these beautiful, almost like painting-like mountains. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the mountains are very far in the distance, and the mountain huts are not as far, but they're both in my relative background. When I go to my 2x, my telephoto view, what that's gonna do is kind of compress them against each other, bring not just those mountain huts a little bit larger, but also those background mountains larger. Both of those are important to me in this picture, so by switching to my 2x view, I'm more filling my frame with the elements that caught my eye in the first place. Now, before we do anything else, light and composition, right? We were talking about that earlier. What's the light doing? Ask yourself that. And I'm asking you, what is that light doing? Now, before I tell you, you may be able to find some clues in this picture. Can you see them? Look at those mountain huts. What's going on in front of those mountain huts? You see the shadows coming this way. They're not going this way. They're not going across the frame. They're coming towards us. What that means is that that sun is behind it, and it's creating these shadows in front of us. Now, as the sun's gonna continue its path through that sky, we're gonna get more and more and more colors in those painterly mountains, but those shadows might fall into what we call silhouette. They might get so dark because we're gonna be looking into that sun. We're starting to almost do that now as that sun is starting to creep into our frame. Now, sometimes we might not like that. In this composition, I don't mind that. I'm looking at these mountain huts more as elements in that frame, just as composition elements themselves. I don't need all that detail. I'm fine with those going black. It's just the overall image, the overall mood of this picture is what we're looking for. Now, the other thing that you might have noticed is this road, that same road that I was walking along earlier. This is a critical element in this scene. Look at the bottom third of this picture. It would just be boring as hell. There would be nothing there. Honestly, I wouldn't want to include it at all. This road actually works out perfectly to break up that boring grass. This road creates what we call a leading line, an S-curve. Now, a leading line is anything that leads the viewer's eye into the picture, into that frame, and hopefully into the subject matter, the focal point of that image, which for us is going to be those mountain huts and then the mountains in that far distance. So what this road does works out perfectly for us. It breaks up the monotony of just that boring grass and creates this dynamic diagonal curve that weaves through that picture, taking the viewer's eye from the core of the frame right into the middle of the picture where those mountain huts are. So it works really well in our favor. So before we take this next picture, this is what most photographers may be inclined to do when they first pick up their camera, is point it at that scene and get that picture straight on, right? Now that doesn't always work because we're just bisecting the image, we have way too much sky, and it doesn't create this interesting composition. Now all I need to do when I'm in my 2x view is a couple things. One, pay attention to this road. Remember I said that I want this road kind of leading through that frame. Now if I wanted it to lead it through the frame, would it make sense to have it come in from the side? Would it make sense to come in from the bottom? Would it make sense to have it come in right from that corner, right? That's the widest part of that picture. It's gonna draw your eye all the way from the corner of that frame in through that scene. So what I wanna do is when I'm pointing my camera towards that scene, I wanna tilt just a little bit to get that road coming in right from that corner of that frame. And at the same time, I'm gonna try and get these 3 huts to be slightly off center too. Now, it always helps to have your focal point not necessarily right in the middle of the picture. We wanna have it off to one side or the other. So by panning just to the right a little bit, what I'm doing is giving less prominence to this giant mountain that's taking up a lot of visual weight in this picture. And I'm giving more visual weight, 2/3 of that frame, just by panning over a few inches to those beautiful mountains that's just gonna catch better and better light as that sun gets lower and lower towards the horizon. So I'm gonna pan to that right to get more, about 2/3. I'm gonna pan down just a touch to get that road coming in out of the corner of the frame. And I'm gonna take that picture. So that's it. That's a shot. It really is that simple. I know it sounds a little complicated because I was walking you through it, but these are common things that we're going to talk about more and more as we go through this course. These are basic compositional elements that you want to pay careful attention to. And if you do, just those small little details are all going to add up to create a much better image in the end.